The other one was a hodgepodge of several different ordinance violations, of which the resident has complied with a large portion of. So if somebody's here that did get a letter, more than likely it was because there was no response to what they were asked to do, or when I stopped by and dropped the card off, I didn't get a response to that. So we just sent an official notification that said, hey, would you mind complying? Now, I can almost guarantee you that it was parking in the grass in the front yard, parking on the sidewalk, or parking in between the sidewalk and the street, all of which are ordinance violations. So, pretty simple fix, move the car. If it's something, you got a family member over, picnics, things like that, the city's really not gonna be concerned. We have common sense and we wanna exercise it. We get it. We all got family, we all got friends and that, but when it's every day, day after day, that's when the ordinance comes into play. So that's basically it. Like I said, there's 11 official notices sent out, a whole bunch of handshakes, a lot of meeting and greeting and talking with the citizens. I think everybody that's drove around and seen there's a difference in what's going on out there, and it's all, you know, credit to the city, the citizens out there that are actually following it and want it. You know, everybody that I do talk to appreciates it and wants it. So, any questions?
Just one, among those 11, were most of those complied with, or all 11, or what fraction would you say was a success?
I would say at this point, I still have to go back out and follow up on a couple of them. Most of them have complied, over half.
That's great.
Well over half. Yes, please.
Is there a written ordinance that everyone can say go online and see what the ordinances are?
Yes.
No.
It is written. You may not be able to get it online.
I have it online, and according to your letter, you say Article 11,
Mm-hmm.
Section 1, subsection F.
Mm-hmm.
I have Article 1 and Article 2.
Okay.
The only thing that has to do with an F is the bathroom floor.
I'm
So
not
if
sure.
you go under, I only have 2 sections. That's all I have, 2 articles. That's all you can get off the line
Okay.
for this one. And so, you know, I mean, I looked, when my husband said that you came out and gave your card and talked about the car being on the side in between the curb and the
Yes, ma'am.
sidewalk. We have a 3-car family,
Mm-hmm.
and it would burden your taxpayers to have to put in concrete to level. I mean, for us, we can't go to the left of our driveway because we've got an electrical box. And if something goes wrong, they gotta jackhammer your sidewalk or your driveway to get to make any maintenance they need to do, or repairs, or just space. And so the other way to go is into our front yard, in front of our front door. Who wants to look out there? I mean, our son parks he parks off street, which is a county violation if he parks on the street. But, and that was just recently enacted like a couple of years ago because the bus couldn't get through because 2 cars parked in the same way. And so, but I think you're burdening, you're providing a burden, financial burden on the taxpayers who pay their taxes, and you're now asking them to have to concrete in their driveway, which then takes away their curb appeal, which then lowers your property values as it goes. I mean, I can understand if you've got a car that does not move on its own because of mechanical issues.
Right.
Those need to be taken care of. I get those. But when you have a car that you get in, you turn the key, you put it in gear and step on the gas and it moves, then I think that.
Oh, I think that would be something the council would have to address because it's an ordinance.
But it's not an ordinance that is made public.
Okay, so what I'm understanding is you want it public.
Well, I think most of the ordinances are not made public. If
Okay.
you've got 11 articles, they're not on the website. There's 3 articles on the website.
Okay.
And here's where we're at with that, guys, really, is our computers are shot. Mr. Fred Spanger, he took, volunteered to look at them, our laptops, our public relations, Don Dooley. We want to put those on there, but right now we're at a standstill because we have no computers. that we can scan these documents and put on there. So if you would just please give us a little bit of time.
You're welcome to come down and get copies of it.
So you do have them here at City
Yeah,
Hall?
Yes, ma'am.
just give the custodian a call and, you know, make sure there's time for that and make sure, you know, she's not busy or, and, you know, she's on vacation and so forth, but, you know, that's, she will do that.
Anybody else? Questions?
I have a question.
Sir, yes, please.
So kind of following up on what Pam said about cars, you know, parked in the yards, which, you know, I think it's pretty ugly to see cars all the time parking in yards and stuff. But occasionally, if it's a car that you're driving, just because you don't have room to put it anywhere else, or just the flow of when people have to go to work and whatnot, high school kids, which are undoubtedly going to be going their own way one day. You know,
Sure.
they're not going to live at their parents' house forever. But there's a lot of people that are using it, and it's probably hard for everybody to follow the same rules just because of the people that use it, because it's very evident that, you know, there's a lot of broken down cars and stuff in yards that look terrible. So I agree with that, but just the overnight type thing, just not to be picked on, so to speak,
Sure.
you know, as a taxpayer, and, you know, as long as you're keeping up with your stuff, and you ain't letting your grass die and big mud holes, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
It's been raining a lot, it happens.
I understand
That's
what
my
you're saying.
concern,
Sure.
but absolutely, I don't like seeing a bunch of garbage sitting around, lowers your property value and everything else.
Right. And that's all, the city's intent is just basically to clean it up. And
Right.
It's a temporary
Absolutely.
situation, we do
I
understand.
totally agree.
Okay, temporary situation. Why did we get a letter? Because after you visited me, and by the way, after you left, I was not happy with the way you.
I knew that when I was there.
But,
I knew that when I was there.
yes, because you approached me more or less a confrontation.
I disagree.
Well, okay, but I'm the one that was confronted. Anyway, we received a letter.
Right.
Right after you left, I moved the car.
And you received a letter because the next day it was in the same spot, otherwise you wouldn't
Okay,
get the letter.
yes, he's talking about temporary, and you're saying common sense.
Mhm.
Right. The vehicle was parked there so my wife could get out,
Okay.
pull out of the driveway. And, you know, maybe a half hour later, I pulled the car back in the driveway. Well, are you trolling around looking for violations?
No, absolutely not. I don't-
Sounds like it's me.
Well, that's your opinion, sir.
We have a problem, we have 3 cars. He may or may not leave for work. She leaves for work every day. I may or may not leave. So if I don't leave and I'm parked in front of him and he needs to leave, he's gotta move my car before he leaves.
That's not an issue.
If I had to make a
But
observation here, I would say it's all kind of new, and he's just trying to do what he needs to do, and, you know, just
Right.
give him some time.
Here's where we're at, folks, okay? Mr. Lona's done an incredible job in the last month in trying to help this city get cleaned up, but I can assure you that it's gonna take a lot more, and people's gonna be upset. But Mr. Lona has put in his 2 weeks' notice because his real estate has blossomed to the point where he don't have time for this. So, you know, there is a thing in the paper this week if anybody would like to apply for this position as code enforcement officer. But I hired Mr. Lona because I know how he represents himself and he represents the city. And you might take it as he's telling you what to do, but he's asking, he did it in a professional way. And I would just like for the public to just give the city a chance. We're gonna have to hire a new code enforcement officer and be on top of things. That ordinance been in effect for what, 1 or 2 years, and they're just now we're getting around to putting that in force. The board, you know, having to get together and meet on these things. But, you know, I don't even know where you live at or what your situation is, but I'll be more than glad to take a look at that and see what, you know, what's going on there. But I can assure you, he's done a professional job in the last month of what all he's done, but he will be, you know, he did put his notice in. And I want to thank Mr. Lona for giving that time and getting this started and getting it going. And I appreciate that. As we, any other questions, anybody else? We'd like to know, sir. Anybody else?
I just want to
Sir,
make a
let's-
positive.
Go.
Okay, council member here earlier mentioned something about paying, I don't remember how much, I think $12,000.
16.
Okay, and said, you know, it's difficult to say paying that out because we're not bringing in any money. Now, I don't have difficulty with paying money out and nothing coming in, because the point is to, you know, make sure things are up and up.
Right.
Not as revenue enhancer, but making sure things are up and up. You know, much like the fire department, you know, it's money you have to spend.
It's something you just have to do, and other
Right.
cities have code enforcement officers and so forth, and they pay those salaries. And I would just like to address the public, as your mayor, I would do this job for free. I'm retired from government, and I do draw a paycheck, but I don't want to do 2 positions for 8,000, that's my point. It's not that I don't want to, I'm gonna be here for $8,000, or if it was 5,000 or 2,000, because I want to serve you, and I want this city to blossom and to grow, and I want to thank you guys for coming out again as we move on tonight, and, but it's not to the extent where I can't afford to be mayor, I want to be mayor, so I thank you guys for voting for me, and it's a pleasure for me to be here to serve you. Any other questions, John?
I'd like to, I don't know if this is the right way to do it, but I'd like to make a motion that we do not enforce fines until we can get the ordinances on the website.
We've not had one citation
No.
wrote.
I don't say it's practical
Yeah,
matter,
we're-
I don't think that's occurred.
We're taking our time with that.
That was never the intent of the city. It was at least several months of getting the word out and just talking with everybody and trying to get some compliance. If there's a discrepancy, then by all means talk, and work it out. We're not targeting anybody, or nor would we want to. And all I can say is I'm disappointed in the fact that you felt that I was confrontational, because that was never my intent, because I remember asking everything. And if that was in fact the way you took it, that was not my intent.
On a semi-unrelated matter, this recent events have given me a good reason to go back and review some stuff I haven't looked at in a long time, because I thought I knew them well enough, and of course you never do, and that's Robert's Rules of Order. We're not required to follow this, let me make that clear at the outset. So what I did the other day, thought that perhaps the time had come to go back and reread some of this stuff. Guys, first of all, it's over 200 pages. I did not read it all, and I don't want to read it all. And I'm not going to ask you guys to read it all. But what I did do was print off some sections that I thought were most important as to what we're trying to do here. And I'm going to be honest with you, if you read this, some of it's hard to follow, some of it's a little bit easier to follow. I tried to highlight some stuff which on the copy comes out sort of gray more or less, but you guys will get the idea. And that perhaps, my thinking is, as we all read this, myself included, our toes may be stepped on a little bit, because I'm certainly guilty of some of these things. But I think as you have time, or if you can't sleep at night, whatever it is that you want to tell me you want to do it, maybe make a good refresher for those of us that haven't looked at it in a long time, and for those who maybe have never read it before, might help put some things in context. And again, I'm not saying, because I could not say, that we're required to follow this. We're not. But I think most organizations find it helpful. So I'm not going to pontificate on it or lecture on it. You guys certainly are intelligent enough to read it and digest it. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the public?
I do.
Ms. Bowman?
What do you all suggest that these neighbors do when they have graduations coming and birthday parties coming, and they invite their families to park near their house, or where are they supposed to park? That's what I want to know.
I can only give you what I experienced. I live on Claiborne, and no parking on the street, right? I know Claiborne has an HOA, and most subdivisions here do not. We have an understanding that if there's a graduation party or birthday party and they park, not within 24 hours. But that's because we're part of the HOA. The only other thing I could advise is maybe, ask a neighbor if you can use their driveway or park at a church that they may not care, and then, like carpool or something like that. But ordinance is an ordinance, and, the laws are out there to protect the people, and it doesn't get, but, and unfortunately, the harvesters don't have an HOA, and that's how we do things, but you can be cited for parking on the street any amount of time.
I would think though, in a situation like that, I know personally, I wouldn't say anything, and that's what I said from the very beginning. It's just basically trying to use common sense. If there's an error made somewhere along the way, we work it out, but.
And you work in the
I think it's
daytime
pretty-
too,
I
don't
think
you,
it-
not on the weekends?
What's that?
You work in the daytime, not in the weekends and evenings, right?
That is correct, only Monday through Friday, but I think it'd be obvious, there'll be cars everywhere. You can tell when somebody has a get-together, so I personally wouldn't say anything. I don't think that, I don't know, Sheriff, do you guys say anything about that?
From our perspective, and this is what I've instructed our guys, one, we didn't really enforce parking up here that much until somebody called. The last council expressed some interest in it, this council expressed great interest in it. We do their policing, therefore, we're gonna go do it. If that's what they want, that's what they're gonna get. I've instructed my guys, if it looks like a party, they're not blocking the streets so the fire trucks can't get through,
Right.
let it be. Also, there was an issue with a work truck that got tagged. I've instructed my guys, if it's a maintenance person, if they look like they're, again, common sense. So, my suggestion would be just let your neighbors know, one, hey, I'm gonna have about 5, 10 cars, and maybe they won't call. But if they do call, and my guys get out there, they're gonna use common sense.
Good.
Well, as you say, it is common sense, and it should be the homeowner's responsibility to make sure that those cars that are being parked are parked properly
Correct.
for the common good of the neighborhood.
Correct.
So that, it is common sense, and that responsibility should be on the homeowner.
Right. And I will say, this is our opinion, as law enforcement, to me, it's a planning and zoning issue. When they build these subdivisions, there should be limitations. There is none, as long as they can get a car in the driveway. I mean, I don't know how many of y'all from the harvesters, but there's driveways that if you park 2 cars end to end, you're gonna be over the sidewalk. Now you're in
Exactly.
violation.
Yeah.
So, that's just a personal opinion.
You're supposed to be 30 feet from the curb. Your house and the street is supposed to be 30 feet. Supposed to allow 2 cars to leave from the driveway.
How many feet from a stop sign?
I don't know the exact footage,
I have papers that was given to me when I purchased my home in the Harvesters, a list of things you can and can't do. And it was about 8 pages. But I notice now they don't give them out to new homeowners or homeowners that are purchasing and buying into it.
That would be helpful.
And that is a planning and zoning issue. It's a deed restriction, and it has to be dealt with by the development. It's not covered, the ordinance don't cover deed restrictions.
Lee, do you have anything to add for the fire department?
Just got our monthly reports handed to you. Of course, you are aware of the fire that occurred of April the 10th. That investigation is still ongoing. It has not been closed as of yet. Additionally, we have seen, I'm glad to report, a dramatic decrease in the number of opioid overdoses in our district in the last 30 days. When you research it, we have to give Brian and company some credit there. Some of the offenders are behind bars right now, but I mean, it was a pleasant surprise. Pleasant surprise. Any questions?
That question for you, Chief. When
Yes,
that investigation is over, how will we find out?
To be honest with you, at this point, the State Fire Marshal's office, excuse me, and the Grant County Coroner are the ones that are in charge. So whenever they make final determinations and final identification, then they will release that information.
Will it be in the paper, I guess, that the calls?
It will be filtered down. I'm sure that they have their own way of releasing information. I don't know exactly what they've got planned, but I know that I will eventually receive a letter of determination from one of the offices.
I'd like to apologize for this family here. I do know who you guys are. I gave him his driver's test, so thank you for coming tonight. If there's nothing else?
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
we never did discuss the law enforcement contract.
Okay, the law enforcement contract is not ready. We have to get with Chuck Dills and Dean is getting with Steve Bates and getting this together, ordinance together. It's just, they've dragged their feet on it. And as a committee member of you and Danny, was there any, the pay on that? We don't know what to put in the contract because we never received any information on, other than what you wanted added to that interlocal agreement. Is the pay the same?
It was the same.
I think that's what we expected. That's what we were asking for.
The-
We
the
put it in the
reason-
budget. Yeah, we put it in the budget.
The reason why I'm there is because of that 100, if I'm wrong, Sheriff, let me know. The reason why the 100,000 was there was for them to hire more deputies. And since that 100,000 was promised, how many more officers have you got?
We had stated to the city at the time that we would hire 2. However, I've done some shifting in my structure, moved the position out of the judicial center into patrol, so we've added 3.
So 3 more sheriff deputies, officers for $33,000
And the
each.
2 of them will be graduating police academy next week.
Good.
We have seen a lot more patrolling in the area, thank you.
Glad y'all
Yes.
see it.
And that's it, if we put it in the budget, it's just, I just want to make sure that it's not going to be a surprise. Anything else? Okay. Before we adjourn, the next caucus meeting is Tuesday, May 28th, 7 p.m. And the next regular council meeting is Tuesday, June 4th, at 7 p.m. I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second it.
All in favor? Have a safe trip home.
Thanks you all for coming very much.
Thank you guys.